What false propaganda is your country telling its citizens? I live in Israel. They tell you joining the army is a fun experience and is important. But all you end up getting is being underpaid, a shit ton of mental and physical problems later, and losing 3 of the best years of your life to doing nothing. Isn't military service mandatory in Israel? It is. That's most of the reason it sucks. But the government still tries desperately to sell you it doesn't, leaving people who had high hopes be extremely disappointed once they get there. We're all in this together. Apostrophe. Celebrities saying that from their mega mansions pisses me off. Can I be in it with you in your giant mansion? Also, invite Scarlett Johansson, if you don't mind. That infinity pool of yours looks so lonely. It's just a constant stream of really inept misinformation. For example, one of the biggest news stories last week was that a conservative MP has asked Netflix to put a warning on The Crown to make sure that people don't think it's real. This surely has nothing to do with the fact that the no-deal Brexit we were assured would never happen is going to take place in a month, and that they completely bungled the first COVID lockdown so badly that we bounced back harder than before right before Christmas, when people are going to be traveling around the country. But yes, Netflix making people think that Margaret Thatcher was kind of an asshole is definitely where our focus should be right now. I'm not British, but I don't think a Netflix drama was the deciding factor for a lot of people's opinion of Thatcher. Our drooling imbecile of a mayor spends her days on Facebook, boasting the kind of achievements that would be considered ordinary anywhere else. She posts completely mental statuses such as "Yay, we fixed a pothole today," or "We've replaced this park bench." A victory for the citizens, whilst buses catch fire on the regular and everything else is slowly circling down the loo. I swear she's running the city into the ground and taking the piss, too. The worst part is that she happens to be surrounded by legions of semi-illiterate morons who don't even live here and keep supporting her no matter what, just because she's ostensibly against the establishment. Go figure. Don't you ever dare to criticize her or her policies, or the lack thereof, unless you enjoy being surrounded by a bunch of cretins who can barely spell their names correctly and call you all kindies of nammies! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. 11,111. Exclamation mark. 1. 11 in all caps. On a national level, the failed lawyer turned puppet turned real politician. I mean, the bloke who goes around telling people how his administration doesn't hide in the darkness, but then hides nasty stuff inside multiple layers of legalese, or makes speeches at midnight. Doesn't even bother lying. In fact, he doesn't say anything. He's quite fond of emitting copious amounts of hot air without taking any decision other than rewriting the same decree countless times, just to account for minutiae such as the closing times of pubs, or how many people are allowed on a lift. I've smoked so much during COVID that I'm turning into a pothole, and you'd still make for a better mayor than her entire, ever-evolving cabinet combined. From India. I don't know what isn't propaganda here. Initially there's no community transfer of COVID in India. There's no major unemployment problem. I'm not sure whatever love jihad is even about. I see the whole renaming of cities founded / developed / named by mullahs as some sort of propaganda. There also a lot about everything existed in ancient India / scriptures and how it was utopia back then. This one might not be propaganda IDK. Also a notable mention. This in one is sort of a superstition. One politician claimed peacocks reproduce by drinking tears. Another claimed internet existed and invented in ancient India during Mahabharata. I know nothing about it, but I would find it surprising if any country in this day and age with any form of large population / density didn't have an unemployment problem. I mean, seriously, there's only so many jobs to go around, especially in densely populated cities. Yeah, some level of unemployment will always exist with population levels such as India, but I think with proper governing and policies those numbers can be brought down to much lower levels than what currently exists. Definitely. I just am assuming you mean politicians are saying there is nothing wrong. I don't know how anyone could believe that. Quoting the president, LGBT is an ideology worse than communism. Apostrophe. Joke's on you. I'm an LGBT communist and I'm into that shit. Yeah. Conservatives are once again threatening us with good time. Do they even have conservatives in Poland? IDK what everything in their government is called. Every country has conservatives and liberals. Some lean more one way or the other or somewhere in the middle. But every country does have people on both sides. Coal has nothing to do with global warming. And global warming has nothing to do with those big fires we had, because it probably isn't real anyway and all the fires were started by evil left-wing arsonists. I live in the USA. I have one thing to say. Facebook. Yeah, social media kind of just shows us what we want to see/interact with, which is propaganda in a way. If I only like dog videos and hate cat videos, all I will see are dog videos and possibly assume that everyone else hates cats and that I'm justified in hating cat videos as well. Good one. This is also why so many people radicalize themselves. Without platforms like this, the far left and the alt-right would just be considered as a little minority of clowns they are instead of being actual movements with a good number of cultists. Exactly. Which in itself just amplifies the voice of extremist that makes up a small percentage of the population. Yet politicians keep egging it on, hoping we hate each other instead of holding them accountable. I hold Facebook's accountability to be pretty high concerning the trend that started in the 2010s where it's easier to insult and take down people who disagree instead of actually understanding their perspective, where the disagreement comes from, and making it a talking point. Every quadrant of politic ideologies are now guilty of this reflex, and especially in the US. Oh god, don't even get me started on American. We are the best country in the world to live in. Well, according to various lists that start with good thing and end in index, we most certainly are not. Spent all our money on freedoms, so we don't have anything left for healthcare or education. That they care for us in this trying time. That despite the COVID vaccine being rushed, it's going to work flawlessly. Fellow skeptic here. I'm usually the most anti-vax person you'll meet, but I'm deeply concerned our corporate overlords are cutting corners in order to be the first to patent a vaccine. And just as concerted, the FDA are cutting corners in order to appease impatient government officials. That said, the majority of the rush you're seeing is coronavirus vaccine tests being allowed to cut in front of others. There's a long line of other vaccinations which were en route to the FDA, and fear is why vaccines take so long to go from concept to development, to test to approval to market. It's those last 3 steps that can take the longest. The queue is very long. Coronavirus vaccines are allowed to cut in front of others. That accounts for like 80-90% of the rush. But yeah, that remaining 10-20% is worrisome. I don't think we have anything to worry about. The Moderna vaccine messenger RNAs, which have almost no side effects. I too despise some of the greedy pharma companies, but am confident in this vaccine. When you have half the scientific world working on a vaccine, I think it would be safe enough. Facebook and Twitter are better at controlling people than any government short of the Third Reich, to the point that their viewers actually want things to be censored from them, and police others are on behalf of media elites. Nobody should have that level of control over others. History has proven over and over that it only ends in disaster. But it may already be too late. Who knows? Dear world, did you even read my book? Sincerely, G. Orwell. Big brother wants to know your location. He already knows. I live in Argentina. The government are blaming the soldiers that fought in the Malvinas War, who were 18 and had literally no training, for losing the war against the United Kingdom, even though they had a lot more resources than us and the help of the USA and Chile. Every time I see footage of that war, it shows Brits looking like extras in an action movie with high-tech gear and the poor Argentinians looking like homeless people. How they were meant to fight off some of the most elite units the UK had to offer is beyond me. We can fix this country! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Apostrophe. Bulgaria. The government doesn't steal money, they say. Where are the fine 10 billion given as help for the unemployed and not working people from the EU? Then, it is great to pay taxes. Everybody loves it and would like to pay more. In a war, one our soldier kills 10 enemies coming from east. We are the happiest country in the world, and it is a lot of win to be born here. Life in capitalistic USA is horrible. Everybody is unemployed, poor and homeless, working 16 hours in a day in 3 jobs without vacations and healthcare. Joe Biden will save Black America. Trump's opportunity zones have done a better job at doing that than any other president in the last 100 years. That we have free healthcare, we don't. We pay for it through taxes. Netherlands. Can't think of any. Could be wrong. Wow, they must be very good at it then. Nah, just too busy with getting people to wear their mask and keeping the Black Pete shitstorm in control to actually do some false propaganda. You mean trying to undo the damage they did by saying masks didn't work for nearly an entire year, while also canvassing the most uneducated part of the population? Environmental damage caused by too much nitrogen is an actual thing. First sentence. That's a better explanation. I stand corrected. Second sentence. I disagree with you that it isn't harmful. The way the data was collected and interpreted was not done correctly. An excess of nitrogen in the atmosphere can produce pollutants such as ammonia and ozone, which can impair plant growth and make the plants attractive to bugs and diseases. The plants will look healthier, bigger and greener at the start, but can't bear as much fruit or vegetables as they would under optimal conditions. I might have worded it in a confusing way. I do think it's harmful. I meant that the government also has to waste a bunch of time on angry protesting farmers that are arguing against science, which is ridiculous, instead of protesting against the government screwing them over by not acting on the problem earlier and taking proper actions. Masks doesn't work. More accurate would be masks works if you use them right. Of course they don't work if you don't know how to use them. Chocolate ratios increased by 20%. Info from the government seems solid and reliable over the past few years. The real head scratcher is normal everyday people making up conspiracy theories and believing them on pretty much any subject. But how does one know it's propaganda, or if it's true? How are you sure you haven't fallen for the propaganda? Politicians is a mess, and I can't understand anything currently, so I just prefer my gaming and anime stuff. There are certain times you can feel it out. A couple of months ago, Americans were criticizing Trump and applauding China for handling the pandemic the way they were at the time. I don't care about Trump, but just take a look at r/Hong Kong to see why you shouldn't trust the CCP. It doesn't take a lot of brain power to understand this is not right and that people's minds are being swayed into thinking a certain way. And just recently some Wuhan files got released stating China has been lying about they were actually containing the virus. And no one was surprised. Now mind you, it also takes a certain mindset to believe that an advertisement or idea is propaganda, where a different mind won't see it. And that's what's scary. You can have the best opinions and follow a sound ideology, but be lied to by your people to think something wrong. And that's when admitting defeat is a good thing. And that's something you don't see today. How smart Joe Biden is. Praising citizens for their resilience without actually doing anything to plan for natural disasters. That the Biden/Harris ticket is somehow the most progressive victory in the history of the presidency. In reality, the center-right DNC collaborated again with the media to stifle any actual chance of a progressive candidate's success. Furthermore, this solidifies in the mind of the American liberal that running milk or toast appeasement right-wing candidates is the only way to stop the scoregop. If Trump had won, it would have proven the left right and allowed for Democrats, voters, not the party itself, to be pulled left. Instead, the big bad orange man is out of office and the US can go back to wanton imperialism and continue the violent oppression of domestic citizens. But politely. 1. I don't think the country is telling you that. 2. Literally nobody is calling the Biden/Harris ticket the most progressive victory in history. 3. Can you stop dragging politics into everything? Your comment isn't even a real answer to the question, it's you pissing your irrelevant opinion on a thread asking for answers to a real question. Edit. The media worked with Democrats to prevent a progressive candidate is in itself a type of propaganda. Lol. I have heard Biden be called the most progressive candidate since FDR. The question is literally about propaganda. Propaganda is political. The question is about propaganda by the country. Which country is saying that the Biden/Harris ticket was the most progressive ticket ever? Lots of other responses here are just one politician saying something dumb in their country, and many replies also point out legitimate propaganda spread by those in power, i.e. Poland's anti-LGBT rhetoric. Correct. And these are all good answers. So get off his back. This thread is for propaganda by anyone who would mislead you about their government. I live in Canada. Whole damned place sucks. I mean, they've asked for examples? What specifically are you speaking about? I'm Canadian too, and consider myself extremely lucky in comparison to most. What kind of propaganda are you talking about? Cause almost all of it comes from Alberta/QC and not at all oil, immigrants, etc. Though saying that I've actually lived and worked outside of Canada and have an idea of how other people actually have to live, I can only assume you haven't. Based upon this statement, spend a decade in the UK or a year in South Africa. Open your eyes to what others are suffering with. Learn about real oppression and austerity. I live in Canada as well and agree that we are lucky compared to most. But certain provinces right now absolutely do suck. Living in Ontario right now is dreadful under Ford. He is ruining our province, and there's nothing we can do about it because idiots gave him a majority. He was bad before the pandemic and the damage from that is going to be long term and hard to reverse. But now his policies are literally killing people. This I can get on board with. I'm in Ontario as well, and was furious to see Ford win majority. Furious to see all the cuts he was making to social programs, with bailouts to things like the racehorse industry. I was pleasantly surprised in the very beginning of COVID with his response. And then it all went to shit when he didn't follow through on what he promised. Although I count myself lucky we just have this bumbling buffoon and not Kenny. True. But it's hard to feel sorry for Alberta when they have decades of electing people like Kenny, with only one recent and brief exception, and have had repeated economic problems as a result. They never learned and knew exactly what they were buying there. There's nothing that could make me live there. I live in America. Do you want red propaganda or blue propaganda? I want blue propaganda. I live in Canada and we are apparently trying to erase the horrors of residential schools and teach our children that they were a good thing, ripping families apart and forcing Eurocentric ideals onto an entire nation of people. Look up when the last one closed and then have a little vomit of disgust. Not in my school at least. I don't know. I'm living in Germany and it seems to be a very open-minded country. Refugees will help finance our welfare state/pay our pensions. All the while there are numerous studies showing that migrants from MENA countries are net negative for the welfare state. While we might still want to take refugees on humanitarian grounds, the state lies that they are also economically good for the country. That is propaganda. In Mexico, our president continues to say that we are already coming out of the pandemic. Of course, that doesn't mean that we are among the first 5 countries with the highest rate of contagion. We know what's best for you. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.